My name's Jennifer McPeak, and I used to write fanfics. Fa la 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 la, jolly keyboard noises, holiday keyboard noises. Content warning for anyone that's worried about it. There is going to be talk about Harry Potter in this video. Like, all of this video. I used to be part of the fandom. I used to be a big Potterhead, proud Hufflepuff, all that kind of thing. I have since kind of stepped away from that fandom, but it doesn't change the fact that I read the books and I watched the movies and I wrote fanfic about it. To disown that in its entirety is to erase a very big part of my writing career and my formative writing years. That said, I don't support the author anymore. Their views not in line with my own. Let us begin. Picture it. The year is somewhere between 2003 and 2005. The Harry Potter books are still being written. The movies are just starting to be filmed and released to the theaters. And I'm on a little website called Quizilla, writing original stories to practice on my world building and such. So I'm doing this with my little stories, not interested in whether anybody reads them or not, because they're just drafts and I'm just goofing around. But I noticed that there were a lot of stories popping up about characters that already existed in fiction, being placed in different scenarios, real world situations, or situations that didn't follow the timeline of the original stuff. At the time, I didn't know it was called fanfiction, but I thought it was cool. I liked it as a concept because I was struggling with character building. I could do a plot, and I was getting the hang of dialogue, but I was struggling in the character development department. I didn't understand the importance of backstory back then in terms of why a character would behave the way that they did. And as a result, my characters were coming off kind of flat. They weren't behaving in a natural way. They were just I was shoehorning them into the things that I wanted them to do. But I saw people doing fan fiction and taking these characters that had established backstories and had established motives and behaviors and putting them in these new situations, and I thought that was awesome. And Harry Potter was still being written at the time. So in my mind, everything that had not been published at that point was fair game. I could fill in the gaps based on the fact that the story wasn't done yet. So I did that for 2 summers in school. 1 summer? I'm not sure. High school was like 16 years ago, and it wasn't a traumatic time for me, so it's not really internalized as like core memories. If I did have a bad high school experience, I was too oblivious to realize it, and I just did my school, hung out with my friends, went to work, graduated, and left. So while I don't remember much about high school, I do remember writing those fanfics, because that was a very important stepping stone for me as a writer. Now, when I was deciding how I was going to go about doing these fan fictions, I had to decide what characters did I want to write about. Did I want to choose a main character? Did I want to choose a side character? And I decided I would rather choose side characters that didn't have a lot of page time, because I could basically put them wherever I needed them to be. So who did I choose to give these adventures to? Did I choose Neville? Did I choose Draco? Who, main character, yes, but he also was kind of a side character. Did I choose Fred? George? One of the Marauders? No. The emo girl who spent her time in the cemeteries wearing band hoodies and who hated organized sports in general. I chose the character whose entire personality was Quidditch. Oliver Wood. Why? Because I thought the actor was cute. This is the guy, by the way. Does 34-year-old me understand what teenage me saw in this guy? Not really. But I also thought Bam Margera was like the coolest guy ever. Anyway, he was only about sports in the books, so I decided in my stories he was going to not do sports. I mean, he was going to do sports, but that wasn't going to be the focus of his character. So that's what I did. I don't know if any of you were on Quizilla at any point, but there was a page called like recently added, and I figured out what exact time they posted. So I started timing my uploads so they always ended up on that list. Because of that, people started actually reading my stories. I was starting to get messages from people who I really hope were my age of, 12 to 16 years old, but they were telling me they were looking forward to my newest chapters, and they were telling me that they were having fun reading my stories. That kind of instant gratification and validation was awesome for my motivation to write, and it helped me prioritize writing more than I had beforehand. Quizilla was not like AO3. There were a lot of guidelines about what you could and could not post, and my stories were love stories, yes, and Oliver always got the girl, but I remember them being very chaste love stories. I can't go back and verify that because that website is dead and gone, and I did not save backups of any of my writings back then. But I know I didn't write sex scenes. I still don't write sex scenes, but that's because I don't want to. I'll read them all day, but I don't feel compelled to write them. That's subject to change without notice. I might start writing sexy scenes, but for now, hi, Mom. Anyway, after I had spent a good chunk of time writing Oliver Wood fanfic and a couple chapters here and there about Neville, I started feeling comfortable enough to branch out into original fiction more than I was before I started doing fanfiction. And that's when I really started to realize that I wanted to put out more polished stories rather than just churning out chapters and chapters. Part of that was because I started writing myself into corners, and if I had spent more time planning my stories out before I wrote them, or if I had finished them, then I wouldn't be panicking and trying to write myself out of that corner in a day before I had to get the chapter out. I left the website to focus on longer form stories and focusing on finishing projects rather than just churning out chapters just so I had a steady pace of people reading. I do credit the use of fan fiction writing as a great stepping stone for me being able to understand how backstories work. I mean, I probably would have learned it eventually, but we're going to go with that. While I don't read or write fan fiction anymore, I totally understand why it is so popular. Sometimes you just aren't satisfied with the way a story went. Writing a fan fiction like that, it's cathartic. And reading that kind of story is cathartic. I only dabble in original fiction nowadays, but I don't think of myself as any more real of a writer than someone that only works with fan fiction, because it's still writing, it's still character building, it's still plot. It's all hard work. Original fiction and fan fiction are both hard work, and it's all meant to be enjoyed, so it's all writing. It's kind of like how I don't really read horror books. I still appreciate the fact that it is a lot of hard work that goes into it. It's just not for me. Same concept. But anyway, that is my history with fan fiction. What about you? Did you ever read any fan fiction? Did you write any fan fiction? Do you still partake, as it were? Outside of the video specific questions, the standard questions still apply. What you reading? What you writing? What you up to? Follow me on Instagram at jmcpeakwrites and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more reading and writing anecdotes and story times on my youth. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you have a great day. See you next time. Later. Ba la 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 la, jolly keyboard noises, holiday keyboard noises.